Hi everyone, Barbara here. Today we are talking about best payroll software for restaurants. There's a lot of them out there, and 30% of restaurant owners claim that staffing is one of their main problems, and 49% of employees say that they're going to go look for a job if there's any payroll mistakes from that same restaurant. So we have to be really careful of the choices that we use for payroll software. It's also important to understand that there are so many aspects of payroll in a restaurant that is different from other types of businesses. So there's essentially, you have to make sure that, first of all, your employees are very familiar with all of once you onboard them as new employees, they know all about the labor laws and where you're located. They need to understand about their hourly rates, their salary, whether they're full-time and part-time, how tipped wages work, which is a big thing to be area to be looking at around figuring out what payroll software to have. They also need to understand how often they're going to get paid, where to put their payment method in there, how taxes are going to be withheld, where the payroll deductions are, and any other employer contributions that may be involved. So there's a lot here. And I do want to call out before we get into some of the software, I want to call out that payroll for restaurants has an added complexity because of tips and tips pooling and tips credit. So tips pooling is where all the employees come together and share for tips over a shift. All kinds of things. Also, servers in restaurants work all kinds of different shifts and they have different pay calculations. Maybe they might be a server one day and another time they might be a guest greeting the guests. And so there might be different shift-based pay. Also, to add on top of all of this, we also have overtime pay that has to be taken into account and meal periods. Anyways, there's a lot. The good news is there's payroll software out there which can really, really help restaurant owners. These softwares can handle anything from paying staff accurately, onboarding, staying compliant with regulations. It becomes less of a headache. Instead of using a very complex spreadsheet, it's better to use a payroll software. So what we're going to cover today is the top three that I consider are some of the best payroll softwares out there. We're going to do a little bit on Homebase, and then we're going to talk about one called Gusto, and then we're going to talk a third one called Paycor. So first, let's start with Homebase. So you can see up on my screen here, I have Homebase up, which is the one that I like the best. They do have built-in payroll capabilities. So if you look here, first on Homebase, I've set up a schedule. So these are shifts that we have for all of the employees, Ansgar, myself, Jatinder, Arturo, and Sinclair. We have these all set up, and I have them all set up by the type of day that they're coming in to work their restaurant shifts. This is super easy to do. I find Homebase has a great user interface, having everything all available, as well as the onboarding. So when you have your team, you could be able to go into the team member and be able to put everything you need in here for them to be onboarded. So that's a really nice option or really nice functionality that Homebase has, and it's very easy. So if we go back to schedule, Homebase, if you look here in their schedule, they really are designed to be hourly workers. So the emphasis on Homebase is employees who work by the hour. They may or may not have a fixed location. Sometimes they cover different locations. That's also accommodated for in Homebase. So, and then Homebase also has built-in payroll capabilities, which I'm going to come back to it in a minute, because before I go on to the payroll capabilities within Homebase, we're going to switch over to our second one that we're talking about today, which is called Gusto. Gusto is really good. It is also very simple to use. You're able to have pretty much the same menu that you saw on Homebase, very similar at least. You'll be able to select all of your staff, and the nice thing is that there's very little training involved with Gusto, so you can quickly get in there. The other really nice thing about Gusto is their customer support team is just incredible. They do a really good job supporting people as they go through. So Gusto is a great tool. It's the price isn't bad at all. So compared to some of the other ones, it has some pretty good pricing. And the few things about Gusto that at least that I didn't like is there's not a lot of workflow automations. Well, number one, I do want to call out Gusto is very good for a mobile view. So they have a great mobile view for both employees and the managers. So that's really good. However, Gusto doesn't have a lot of automations, workflow automations, which means that I have to spend more time as a restaurant owner building in or doing those manual automations. So, for example, payroll sending over to the actual payment gateway, all of that has to be done manually. So there's not a lot of workflow built in, workflow automations built in there. As well as the biggest one with Gusto that I didn't like is they do not have a built-in time tracking tool. So once again, this increases your time because you're having to take that time. Let's say you're having your employees track on an old-fashioned spreadsheet or timesheet of some sort, one of those tools. You have to be able to feed that time back into Gusto. So that's a limitation that I've noticed with using Gusto. The third one we're going to cover, and then we'll go back to Homebase, is Paycor. Paycor is a very comprehensive tool. They have all kinds of things built in there. So payroll, hiring, onboarding, workflow scheduling, employee information, putting everything all into the same place. And this is really helping restaurants navigate the whole aspect of human resources. And they also have a wide variety of payroll options to be able to sort through the complicatedness of payroll and taxes and everything that goes along with it. One thing I want to call out about Paycor that's really nice is they have a really strong mobile app where they have everything built in there. So they have done a really good job bringing their app to the forefront, and everybody likes it. The other thing is that they have many different ways that employees can clock in. Sometimes there's just one set way that employees can clock in, and they have very different ways that employees are able to clock in and be able to record their time. So Paycor is a good one. The problem with Paycor is because it doesn't, Paycor does have time tracking and scheduling. However, these are available as an add-on. You have to purchase those separately. So that could be hard for restaurants because this is a core part of their business. So Paycor may not necessarily have been designed specifically for restaurant owners, but that is something that they do offer, but you have to pay extra for it. And then I've heard some people say that Paycor doesn't have the best customer service. I haven't experienced that myself, but some people have said that Paycor doesn't have the best customer service. So we've talked about Homebase, we've talked about Gusto, and we've talked about Paycor. And now I'd like to go back to Homebase, which is my preferred one, and just go look through how payroll works. So there's a little video here, and we're going to put that up. And so we're going to go through. So this is Sarah, who had, owning a coffee shop and having to go through and pay everything. So she just simply clicks Start Payroll. And she has all of her information in here. We saw this earlier on my screen. All the employees are listed out. Remember, if we click on this, we can have all of their onboarding information, all of their documents. So everything's all in one place. Their hourly rate, how many hours they've worked. So we'll go on to the next. And we are now going to make sure everything adds up. We're going to run our payroll and everything gets calculated for us. So how much taxes need to be pulled out, the net pay, the company taxes. This is the piece that restaurant owners and managers really like seeing. Just have it all calculated. Now remember, you have to build all this in. So this is part of the setup. Homebase does help with all of that as you go set up. So it has a fairly easy setup process, which is really nice. And then here we go. We've now submitted all of our payroll, and that's how it all works. So it's easy. It's easy to set up. It's a great system, and like I said, easy with scheduling and getting all your team availability is another thing that makes it super easy. So not only do you have your availability, timesheets are built in, which we didn't see on some of the other tools. We can set up time tracking in here. As well as Homebase has other options too. So there's reporting, you can hire within here as well. some benefits, things that we're not necessarily talking about today as we're focusing on payroll software, but it's a great all-around tool. And it's designed for setting up payroll, processing payroll specifically for restaurants and restaurant employees. I hope that helps. Take care.